Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Clue, and this is Country Fan Mail Podcast. And as you see, I have the one and only Sho Baraka on the show today. This is going to be a really dope interview. Once again, I really appreciate you coming on here with me, sir.
Man, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
For sure. Historically, one of the first things that I asked the artists that I talked to are, what was the first song that you listened to this morning when you woke up?
What was the first song I listened to? I usually just put on playlists because I had to take my kids to school. So I try to play either something that is kid friendly or gospel music. So I
Okay,
don't really
okay.
remember. I don't remember the songs, but I know it was either at first it was some gospel, and then I let my kids pick, and they picked like everything from I don't know Mary Poppins to.
Gotcha.
So I know I listened to some gospel music, and I know I listened to like some Mary Poppins and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory soundtrack stuff. So
Okay,
I'm all
okay.
over the place. Out here
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
remix Mary Poppins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, do they ever request to listen to your music? Like when y'all
Never,
driving to
never,
never.
ever. That
Gotcha,
was
gotcha.
like maybe. So my oldest, my daughter, who I don't take to school, she's 16. She used to back when she was probably like 10, 11, 12, that
Yeah.
age. Now she's like out of her hip hop and R&B phase. She's into like alternative music and
Okay.
kind of like emo stuff. So she's like, I don't care about rap. Unless it's like old school stuff. Like my wife is an old school head. So she'll play like, I don't know, like Slick Rick and all the old school rap. And so my
Yeah.
daughter will like that stuff. It's weird. Like she'll listen to the old school, like, I don't know, Heavy D, the Slick Ricks, the Run DMCs, but she won't listen to any current thing.
That's interesting. That's real interesting. So I mean,
Yeah.
was that kind of due to, I mean, I know you said your wife, so like did you have as far as like your coming up, your upbringing, like was that kind of those same artists that you were listening to coming up? Or like what were some of the artists that you were banging heavy?
Yeah, I mean, I have two older brothers. My oldest brother is I think 6 years older than me.
Okay.
So I got into hip hop because he brought it into the house. So like the Rakims, the Public Enemies, he was playing that stuff, and so I was like, "Yo, this is cool." And then like the Tribe Called Quest, and so those are the folks who I guess you can say formed my affection for hip hop music. So from there, it went to like the Wu Tangs to a whole bunch of underground West Coast artists because I grew up in outside California. I mean, outside Los Angeles, and so I mean, for folks who maybe hip hop heads like Far Size, the Hieroglyphics, the Project Blow, um, Alcoholic, stuff like that, and then obviously the Biggies and the Pocs, the Nas's, and then from there, as I got older, got to college, I had, I mean, Kanye was obviously Jay Z,
Mm,
Kanye, Common. Common was like my favorite
yes.
artist. But then I became a Christian and I took my faith very seriously, and at some points maybe legalistic. And all I listened to was gospel and Christian hip hop, and so cross movement was the standard for me. And I knew everything about them. I knew all their lyrics. I tried to watch every video, whether it was speaking or music. And so for a long period of time, Christian hip hop and gospel music just had me. And so uh, once I started listening to mainstream music again, then the John Mayers. It's funny. I became more of a fan of singer songwriters after that,
Okay.
um, because there was something I think that gospel music did to me and Christian music, and just the fact that the faith. I became more. I became more of sensitive to messages and how people articulated messages, and I wanted it to be abstract and complex, and I felt like singer songwriters did that better than some of your hip hop artists. Not all. There's a lot of hip hop artists that are
Mhm.
very abstract and complex with their music, and speak obviously in metaphors and analogies, but I felt like singer songwriters. So yeah, John Mayers and artists like that were the folks that I just started to follow and listen to, groups like Mute Math and um, got back into like 70s, like the jazz and 70s music. So like your Motown artists, your Miles Davis, Charlie Parker's, because I had never listened to the jazz before then. It's just I expanded my my listening palette, if you will. So
I'm glad you brought that up because there was a phase in which I guess I'll say early on that I was I'll say uh, just trying to understand myself, and I was looking into faith, and that's when I was definitely going I was going to church a lot more often, and I took a period of time that I took out all secular music and I was listening to nothing but Christian or Christian hip hop music, and I did not know that there was so much Christian hip hop music that I would resonate with. And
right,
that's when I stumbled upon, cats like you, cats like Lecrae, cats like Flame, cats like what's his name? Theory Has It, who didn't even start off as a
yeah,
Christian rapper.
three heads is
And that's
dope.
when I heard him first was, he was on some completely different stuff. And then all of a sudden I heard this CD. I was like, Theory Has It. This isn't the same Theory Has It I'm used to listening to. But I really liked it.
Right, right,
So
right,
it gave me that opportunity to really because I felt like that era, like that I would say like between 2000 and I'll say '07 to like 2015, there was like a really, really strong era, at least from my eyes. There was a really strong era of Christian rappers that had a really, really big pull on the youth. And I
yeah,
feel like that was a really big thing because, yeah, that was one thing about rap that, going to the Christian rap side, is like, I don't want to listen to something that's like not going to make my head bob
right,
at
absolutely,
least, so
yeah.
like how was that, how was maneuvering through that space, trying to, remain, of course, number one, in touch with the faith, but then two, in touch with the industry.
I don't think I think it's interesting. There was a I think during that time, specifically that time you're talking from 2000s. I mean, my first album came out in 2007, but I'm sure people, I know people were having this conversation before 2007. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, 2006 to up to about 2011, I was really wrestling with what does it mean to be a Christian artist? Like, what does that mean? Does it mean that I only rap about Jesus all the time? Or does it mean that I am to create things that I think paint a perfect picture or paint a picture of what Jesus affirms and what he doesn't affirm? And so that means if I make a love song, it doesn't have to be a love song about, ooh, girl, Jesus loved us, so we love each other. You know what I'm saying? It could just be a song that just like We Could Be More that I made in 2010 that did, was really successful that just talked about the affection a man and a woman have for one another in a godly manner without there being any kind of gospel element in it. Well, let me say this, without there being any Christian didactic teaching within it, because I believe it's heavily gospel centered in the sense that it shows a accurate depiction of what love is. You know what I mean? So it was difficult in the sense that I think that there were a lot of artists trying to figure themselves out because some of the folks that we looked up to were highly didactic and highly preaching oriented, and a lot of us were just artists who loved Jesus and wanted to just make his name famous, but also wanted to keep an eye out on what is relevant in the grand scheme of hip hop. What instruments are popping right now? Like what sound is popping? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Without being those folks who copied. You know what I mean?
Got you. Okay, and with that, trying to stay in that realm of like you said, not always talking about Jesus per se, but still bringing that into the music, mainly hitting on your album, The Narrative. So that album I feel like was probably one a perfect example of just that, where you listen to it and it is, you can tell it is a Christian rapper. However, there is so much other content in that album.
Mm.
Like my favorite song probably is My Hood USA, 1939, I believe it
Said
is.
it. Yeah.
37, yes. So that's probably my favorite song because literally, for one, just within the few first seconds, I was like, all right, this track already got me. I like the beat, already got me.
Yeah.
And then, when you're rapping, it sounds like, I mean, you're teaching, but you're also rapping, and you just, there's so much knowledge that gets spit out. I was listening to the song driving my stepson to school this morning, and he was listening to it, and he was just like, He was like, "What does he mean by mysterious fires?" And I was like, "Oh, we can talk about that when you get out of school." Because it's like it literally just it draws people in and it makes you wonder, like, damn, it sounds good, but he actually says something that I'm curious about. So like, so it's what I guess what I'm trying to ask is that album particularly, I know it had to have been amazingly fun to make because it was just, I mean, just the amount of knowledge that you were putting out, and I see that you are just a natural born teacher, you're a natural born educator. So like, how does that feel? Like, how did it feel actually putting out that album on the mainstream market?
It felt extremely liberating. It felt like it was all of who I was. It felt like I didn't need to appease a particular type of person, but bring myself to the like bring myself to the space, as a lot of people say, and say, this is who I am. There are going to be people in this room who enjoy it. There are going to be people in this room who probably don't enjoy it. But I'd rather give you a presentation of all of who I am versus trying to segment or compartmentalize things about me and make music in that context and gain success while being miserable in that success. And so, quite liberating is the word I can think, or the term I can think of. It was liberating. It was fun. It I think it helped a lot of people who, like yourself, know these things, but gives them language to communicate, or gives them a soundtrack to the things that they've been feeling. It helps those
Hmm.
folks who haven't had these types of educations and conversation, and they're like, wow, I didn't know these things. Like, this is interesting. But it also gave people, I think, lectures to a great sound. Like, it's still good music. It's not just a bunch of weighty, heady things without there being some musicality that will engage you and get you enraptured in the sonic pleasures, I guess you can say.
I like that. I like the way you put that. And because I feel like there was another track that once again to the ear it sounded amazing, but once you actually break down the lyrics, you were speaking some real stuff. And that was a Road to Humble 1979.
Mhm.
And from my understanding, and you could of course you better explain, but from my understanding, that song was pretty much like from from a very early on kind of almost like a top view of like kind of like your life, or
Yeah,
kind of like what was kind of going on in your life. And there was one line that you said that really stuck out. It says, I've been fighting off depression instead of confessing my obsession of being impressive.
hmm,
So I wanted to bring that one out because I wanted to talk about mental health and exactly like what that means to you as an artist, as a black man, as a man, just in general, as a father, as a
yeah,
husband. What does mental health mean to you, and what do you do to uh, to help your mental?
yeah. I am. There are a lot of good books out there, and to be honest, I don't read all of these books, but there's one book that my friend just wrote. It's called Permission to Be Black. It's by Adam Thomason, and he basically talks about the tools that he's received in order to process and learn about how to deal with the traumas that he's experienced in life. And oftentimes in Black communities, we try to tough through things, or but I think there is this new wave of conversations and postures within Black communities, especially younger folks who are taking on the mantle of counseling and mental health. And I haven't been that person. However, because I came from a household, it was like, suck it up. I came from a household of athletes. My father was a professional football player. You bury your frustrations deep down, or you argue them out. You know what I'm saying? And so for
Hmm.
me, just recently is the first time I've ever done any kind of counseling. Like, literally in the last 6 months, it's the first time I've
That's
ever done
awesome.
any counseling. But to answer your question, so it's multifaceted. One, if you are the type of person that feels you need counseling, seek it, seek that help. And it's not always, as people say, it's not just for when you have problems. It's when things are good and you just want to continue to get check-ins. But the one thing I will say as far as mental health is it's our obsession with being people pleasers that oftentimes leads us to an unstable mindset because we're always trying to figure out what is the approval of this crowd? Like, how do I impress these people? How do I do that? In the context of the lyric you read is like my obsession with being oppressive. You'll always be the finish line will always be moved if you're continuing trying to please people because there's always something else you have to do. You'll please these people over here, but then this person over here says you're not good enough, and you're like, well, what do I need to do to please them? And then well, then what do I have to do to please these people? What do I have to do to please them? And if you live like that, you'll live a disoriented, fragmented life because you're never figuring out, well, how do I myself find peace within? How do I find contentment in who I am? And how do I know when enough is enough? You know what I mean?
Does that
And
pretty
other
much go
people
along
can't
with
say
your
that.
other? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll say,
No,
does
no,
that
go
go
ahead.
with your line of? I think you said the difference between the paid artist. No, the difference between being an artist and a paid prostitute. It was something close to that. I
That
don't
a
want to
PR.
misquote you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, what was that? Is that pretty much the same thing that you're
Yeah,
posting?
he said, yeah. I do think that we as artists oftentimes are so consumed with spotlight and platform that we'll do just about everything other than probably some people do sell their bodies, but other than sell your body in order for
Mm,
recognition. You know what I mean? And so what I say, um, you know, are rappers just prostitutes with better PR? And because we're constantly trying to like, hey, look at me on social media. Hey, you know,
yep.
it's always this show you're putting on, even when you don't have albums out. Like you don't have anything to promote really. You're still trying to make sure that you're in the people's presence because you don't want them to forget about you.
Is that important? Do you feel like
It's
depending
important
on?
in the sense that the market has created this need for us to market ourselves constantly because labels are almost insufficient. Like they're insignificant, better yet. They're insignificant nowadays. And so labels used to make sure that artists had platforms, and when you need it they'll put you in front of thousands and thousands of people, so therefore when the time is necessary, get you on this radio spot, get you here, get you there, get you on this
Mhm.
tour. Well, because industries are, deficient in that way, now the artist is responsibility or is responsible for their own platform and their own marketing a lot of times. And because social media is ubiquitous now, now what we have is artists continually all day every day finding social media being their job.
Yep.
And so it's like, I have to post today even if it's nothing important happening in my life. I have to post, I have to do this, I have to do that. And so in a sense, it's important if you feel like that's your career and that's how you're going to live. The detriment to that is that you're going to kill yourself emotionally, socially, and mentally. You're gonna burn yourself out because you're constantly trying to figure out, how do I put myself in front of people? And for me, I think it's more important to retreat and to not always feel like you have to post. You look at my Instagram, I post maybe like, I haven't posted in like 2 weeks, I think. But
Yeah.
even in that, it's only like 120 something posts.
Yeah.
And I'll post on my stories probably more than I'll post on, but even that, it's like, if I don't feel like I need to post anything, I'm cool. Like I'm just like, but I also know the risk I take in doing that.
Mhm.
Like, I don't have hundreds of thousands of followers. I don't have a million followers, and that may affect my income. That may affect the opportunities I get. But at the end of the day, I trust God. I trust my talent. I trust my skill set that it will present for me opportunities, even in protecting my mental health.
Okay. And that this perfectly segues me into another question. This question actually came from one of your fans. His name is Casey. He's one of my good friends.
Let's go.
He
Okay,
had a
good.
question. He wanted to know when it came to I'll say probably within the years between like 20. I mean, it's kind of hard to really specify a year when you don't know the question I'm about to ask, but when the Black Lives Matter movement was really like in everybody's face, and a lot of different artists and a lot of different celebrities were coming out and they were making their statements on it, whether they were Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, Dolphins Lives Matter, whatever they wanted to say, they were coming out saying what they wanted.
Dolphins lives matter.
Um,
Yo.
so like my question for you is like when it came to all of that and when all that was going on, like what was what was your stance on it, and did you ever feel any pressure with the platform that you have to say anything?
I would be lying if I said no, I didn't feel any pressure. I think anytime you're a thinker, or like you said, a teacher, someone who's a communicator, and people find the things that they say to be helpful for the world and society, then what happens is those people tend to seek you more for insight, and you begin to appreciate and crave for that attention sometimes, because they're like, oh, these people trust me. And that can be a great exchange. It can be a very helpful exchange, but it can also be a very dangerous exchange as well. It can also be intoxicating to the point that you feel more highly of yourself than you need to, because you feel like, oh, I need to speak to every issue, when you have no authority to speak to these issues. You're just like, maybe you should just shut up. um, so yes, there were moments when I felt pressure to speak up. Um, but I do feel now I am in a place where I don't, I don't feel any pressure to speak on an issue. It doesn't matter if the issue is somebody does something to my family. I don't feel the pressure to have to go public and say, "Hey, no." It's just, if this is something that I need to reconcile personally, and if I have a circle of people who I feel really need my counsel, then I feel responsible to them, not to the world, because I have so many followers on Twitter and Instagram, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So yeah, there were a lot of things I did say. Black Lives Matter came to prominence in 2013. I'm pretty sure it's like 2013, 2014. And obviously 2021 still relevant. So there have been things that I've said since then to today, um, in support of Black Lives Matter, and in opposition to Black Lives Matter,
Okay.
in support of this idea of we do need some sort of policing in our community, and in opposition to, like, it is ridiculous. We are over policed in particular communities. There needs to be great reform. Um, uh, I don't have anything for dolphins, but yeah. So, but for the for the Blue Lives Matter and Black Lives, whatever. But ultimately, I try to be a very nuanced thinker, in the sense that this country has exploited. My belief, I believe that this country has exploited Black lives for way too long. I think it's been
Mhm.
Black people have often been abused, not only physically but mentally and socially in this country. Now, I don't think it's at the margin in which it was, you know, a century ago, nor maybe 50 years ago. But I do think there are systems in place that intentionally put people to the margins. And it's not just Black people. I think people who are poor. I think this country ultimately has a problem with class division.
Yes.
And those folks who tend to be on the margins of the class conversation tend to be minorities, um, in this particular country. And so, with that, over policing, with that, healthcare problems, with that, abortion issues, with that, all the healthcare issues. So, yeah, I think that I think, yeah, I don't know if that's answer your question,
No,
but
it
yeah,
definitely did. It
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So there was a lot of things. A lot of times I saw a lot of artists that came out with like songs that were like very much so in support of like that cause. And sometimes I would hear the songs, and I'm not saying I would have issue with it, but it's like I would hear some of the stuff that they had out regularly, and then I would hear a song, about the Black Lives Matter movement, and I'm just like, and
Mhm.
it kind of, but it's like I don't try to take away anything from them, because it's like people are still listening. You're utilizing that platform
Yeah,
again, but
yeah,
that's one of
yeah,
those instances where I'm like, you could have just shut up. You could have
yeah.
just let somebody else take that one.
Let somebody else speak. Yeah, no, it's activism is trendy. You know, when things are hot, people talk about those things. There
Hmm.
were, I mean, this is not new. 70s, the same thing. There were very famous artists who didn't want to speak to civil rights issues in the 60s and 70s, and at some point they did. They start talking about it. Now, does that mean that they were fake? No, it just, it just means that at some point they didn't and now they do.
Got you. Okay.
um I will say this. There are times when artists speak up or say things and they probably shouldn't. They probably should learn, listen, because it can seem as being expedient or being a opportunist,
Hmm.
because you see what's hot and what's popping in the moment, and so you like, oh, we've never heard you speak so vehemently about social issues. Now all of a sudden, you're the one we're all supposed to listen to. Huh? That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, cool, cool, cool. I guess we'll do that. Um, as Kendrick Lamar saying, overnight activist. You know what I'm saying? Uh,
Yes.
you know, I am of the belief that if you're not necessarily against us, you're for us. You know what I mean? As the Bible
Okay.
talks about, Jesus looks at the disciples because the disciples are grumbling because they see other folks casting out demons and doing great things in Jesus' name. And the disciples was like, yo, who are these dudes? They weren't with us in the gym when we was
Yeah.
shooting. And
You got over with.
Jesus is like,
Okay.
why are y'all mad? Like, if they not against us, they for us. You know what I mean? And so there are some people who put on the jersey late, and there's some people who put on the jersey and they're fraudulent, and those people should be called out. But if they put on the jersey and then they seem to, like, really be concerned about the issues, I'm like, amen. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. I'll segue the conversation a little bit. So going back more so to, I guess like a artist relations type of conversation. So just looking back over, saying the years, as long as you've been making music, a lot of different artists that you've done work with. Of course, you have 116, you have, Lecrae, Tadashi, Trip Lee. I mean, but that's just a very that's just that nucleus. You know what I'm saying? There's been
Mhm.
so many different other projects that you worked on. And one specifically that stood out to me was a song you did with, I think I would say his name was Propaganda.
Okay.
It's called I Ain't Got an Answer.
Yep.
And so I kind of skipped over the question. More so I wanted to ask, like, when it came to those features and those artists, like, what were some of the most memorable times that you had being a working with different artists, either you would be in the feature or having them featured on one of your songs?
I think I think features are a lot like, I mean, I guess you can this translate probably to any occupation or vocation, but I think of it more like a sports. It's like playing with great players. It's like they make you better. Um,
Like sparring almost.
yeah, absolutely. You box or something? Are you a boxer?
No, I mean I used to do martial arts. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. I said, you got hands, cuz? You got hands? Yeah, I mean, it's you get in the ring with these individuals, and the things that they throw at you makes you better. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, now I have some more tools. Okay, I used to. Now I can do. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes
yeah,
sense. And you appreciate those moments as an artist and as a creative, because um, they're like these drops in times, because it won't last forever, but it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, so the songs I've been on, the features I've done, artists that have pushed me, and even producers too. I think producers, I give a lot of credit to producers. There are producers I've worked with that make me better, and when I work with them, it's a joy to get into the lab and just create things, because I know out of the time we're spending, something's going to come out of this. Something that beautiful is going to come out of this. Um, and then you brought up the song "I Ain't Got an Answer." Songs like that with Prop is a song that you get into the studio, you write it, you create it, you record it, and you had no idea it was going to be the kind of impact that it would be on people's lives. Like that song, I've gotten people who've text me, or not text me, but reached out to me in different forms of social media, email, who have no idea who I am, maybe don't even know who Prop is, but they came across that song, and they have either kids who are on this autism spectrum, or they have relatives who have, they know people who have kids with special needs, and they're like,
Mhm.
that song is such a blessing to me. That song has changed my life. That song is like my anthem every day, or this song just blesses me. And it's I've had opportunities to perform that song at different conferences and spaces, and it's just been a blessing, you know. So there's songs like that you go into it, you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna make a song about fatherhood and parenting, but it becomes much bigger than that, just a song about parenting.
So what how is that on a daily as far as having, just being a father, having multiple kids and then having a child that is on the spectrum? Like how is that as
It could
far
be
as like I'm sorry?
no, go ahead, go ahead. You can finish this question, and I know if you
Oh no,
finish.
yeah, yeah. I was just saying how is it on a daily? How's it, some the day to day? Is it something different or
It's definitely different. It could be, it could be very difficult, but it can also be, I mean, just like with any neurotypical child, it's just, you just have a child that responds differently to things and has these little behaviors that aren't usual to with, more neurotypical children. And so you learn after a while, it just becomes your life. It's nothing weird. It's just it
Mhm.
only becomes obvious or interesting is when you enter into spaces where other people aren't used to those types of behaviors or things, and then you're like, oh, I forgot I have a child with autism. So
Gotcha.
as we walk, we're in this movie theater or we go to this museum, and he's, does something, you'd be like, all right, hey, don't do that. Or, you
Step
know
back.
yeah. So but it's it's
Would you say you've
beautiful.
grown used to it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful, but then there are moments when it can be frustrating, very frustrating. Like I was just talking to my wife the other day about our daughter, who is the oldest of our children, and she was just talking about her anxiety as she gets older because she's concerned, like, if when we die, who's going to take care of her brothers, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, like that's too much weight for a 16-year-old to be thinking about right now. Like just live your life, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But the thing is that we know our children, like our boys, are probably going to be living with us for the rest of our lives. That's just the reality that we're, and there's no such thing as empty nesters for us. I have friends who are living the same life right now, and in a year from now, their kid is going to age out of the school system, and so they're really wrestling with what does it mean to know, like, we are really going to have to live with this grown adult for the rest of our lives. And
Mhm.
so it's just a reality that you have to embrace and accept. And to go back to an earlier issue or a point that you brought up, just mental health, like to make sure that you're healthy physically, so you can live as long as you want to, as you as live, so you can live as long as you possibly can. Better yet, to be healthy mentally, so that things don't break you, so that you can have, you know, a stable home, but then socially also being healthy, because you don't want to make your world around just your children, because you want to live a healthy life and a healthy marriage, so that you know you have all of the healthy touch points that make for a flourishing life for not just you but everybody in that household.
Okay. In that health aspect, I saw and I'll bring it up in a funny instance, but the show that you did, I think was One Great Night.
Yeah, one good night.
So
Good
of
night.
the short series, and you, so the one where you had you were doing the guy who was making the veggie sandwich,
Yeah,
and so for one, when you were making it, it looked bomb. Like I
it's a good
usually
sandwich,
wouldn't
my
go
friend.
for anything like that, but I was like, yo, that actually looks really good.
I may
So
make
do
one
you?
tonight. I may make one today, but it's a great sandwich, I'm telling you.
Is that actually how you eat? Like, are you a vegetarian, pescatarian?
For the most part, yes. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Like, I never eat meat. I don't. There's certain meats I don't eat, but I will eat like lamb and every now and then chicken. Uh,
Okay,
but yeah,
so no beef, no pork.
yeah, no beef, pork, turkey. I'm allergic to fish, but I can have shellfish, which is strange.
That is strange.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Okay, okay.
So yeah.
Um, so and then I know some of these things you might also have drawn out in your book, which I want to make reference to. Your book, he saw that it was good. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead and plug it in. Plug it in. Yes. So yeah, if y'all have not got that book, definitely go check it out. I got it on Audible the other day, and I have not stopped listening. It is really, really a dope book. And one part that I really want to bring up that stood out to me, and it was actually, I'm not gonna lie, it was a sample part that I checked out first, and then I went to
Mhm.
go find where that actual chapter was because I was like, man, he is talking. But you were talking about the influence that your mother had on you by giving you a compliment.
Mhm.
So when you had said, you know, your mother said you look good in red, and you were just like, "Oh, I look great in red." Well, that now red's my favorite color, and now I remember that pretty much happened to me. Red's my favorite color, so it's like it pretty
Yeah.
much happened to me similarly. And my mom definitely had. There were just a lot of things that you were saying. It's just about the impact. It's the impact of what you can tell somebody, the things that you can present to somebody, and how it will literally can possibly shape or stick with them for the rest of their lives.
Yes, yes.
So, like, what else in that book, or what specific chapter in that book? Um, what am I trying to say with this? What specific chapter in that book do you feel like at this point in your life probably resonates the most?
Well, I think all of them do. That's the reason why I wrote it.
Yeah.
I think the beautiful thing is that they all resonate in different ways because I try my best to write. Um, it's almost like these. So the first chapter deals with kind of like how stories, to your point, how stories impact people's identity and
Mhm.
how we form a lot about who we are from either the things that people tell us, the movies and the TV shows, or the music we listen to, from things we read, the information we gather from education. Those things begin to shape us, and we take on identity formation because of that. Second chapter talks about more so like work and how does my creativity and work create to either flourishing or the detriment of society. And then from there, I am trying to build this case for work and story through different modalities and how it's affected justice, how it affects Christian art, how it affects I'm forgetting some things, but anyway. And so the beginning is like this setup, this theology of ethics and work, and then I'm trying to filter how those things have impacted our society from Jump Street. So I think it's I think if there's the simplest chapter would be the last chapter, 7, which is more of a framework, a 7-step framework or a 7-point framework, if you will, for folks to be like, oh, here are some things that will be useful for me in order to be effective with working and creating in society. But it'll be hard to really get a full concept of that without reading the whole book, if that makes
For sure.
sense. But you can still read it and be like, oh, these are good points, and go and try to implement them in your life.
Okay, yeah, and those I think those books are the best. Honestly, I feel like the
Yeah,
books that have things that you can really put into true action. Because I can hear anybody talk about or read about, themselves, or saying, but it's like you
right,
don't give
right,
me
right.
anything practical to actually touch. But yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
no, yep,
Um,
absolutely.
so are you working on anything else? Are you working on any other books, or co-writing
No,
with
not right
anybody?
now. I'm not working on any books, but I am working on just a bunch of creative stuff from music to kind of theater-ish things. But
Yeah.
yeah, no books right now.
Okay. Okay. So what about the music? So you said some stuff going on with that.
I've been doing is just a lot of writing. I do have plans on releasing an album. Not really sure right now exactly when, but I have lots of music that I am writing and trying to create. So I am not in a drought at this moment. And so I pray that the Lord continues to give me inspiration and insight so that I can continue to make good stuff.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And speaking on that drought, just lastly to pretty much wrap this all up, what advice do you have to any artists, whether they are artists that are just really starting to get into it, be like, hey, I think I want to make this work, versus the artist who's been doing this for a while, even has some fame, but is in a place of that drought that you were talking about, that kind of that
Yeah.
artistic depression, as I like to say it. What advice do you have for them?
Uh, to It depends on what's causing the drought. So I'll answer the latter first, but what's causing the drought? Because sometimes overworking creates a lack of imagination. And
Mm,
so you may need to take a break and live life. You know what I mean? And I think the more you live life, the more you should be inspired by the things around you, the more you visualize, you take in. And sometimes you just got to put this thing down. You got to put it down and live. You know what I'm saying? Just that
Hmm.
phone will kill you. It gives you all this information. It makes you present. It makes you places you everywhere, but it'll also kill creativity because you're just constantly in it. For artists who are starting out, I would say, man, just learn the craft, study the craft. It's interesting to me that hip hop is one of the few entities where people feel like you don't have to study the art form. Musicians study, singers study and learn. Um, yeah, painters, yeah, but hip hop artists, jazz musicians, rock artists, they all learn and study. And I feel like rappers feel like we don't really have to learn the craft and study the history of rap, and I feel like that will be the best thing for new artists, and also for both understand the business aspect of the industry as well, because it can be vicious. So
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of things you said that I like there. Like you said, the whole studying the game, being a student of the game, you can tell which ones are and which ones aren't. You
yeah,
definitely can tell which ones are and which ones aren't. And yeah, that business aspect, cause yeah, I'm so tired of seeing people getting messed over in the business, and it's really just all due to lack of knowledge, lack of know how.
yes, yeah.
But yeah, but anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. But I want to go ahead and wrap this up. I really appreciate you coming on to the show once again, man. It's
Thank you.
been an awesome conversation for sure. It's been real easy, and thank you for everybody that's tapped in. Of course, this is Clue and Mr. Sho Baraka here. We're wrapping it up with Country Fan Mail Podcast. Once again, I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Hey, same to you.